and welcome everyone to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. I am your host, Nina Joshi. And before we bring on our amazing guest for today's episode, just wanted to give you all some quick reminders. So we have this month's Innovators Summit from November 29th to December 1st. It's going to be an amazing event. And we also have a promo code for you all. All of that registration information will be in the chat. And also a reminder about our Breakthrough One Alliance membership. Those applications are also now open, and all of that information will also be in the chat. And so with that, I want to bring on our guest today. Today, we will be talking to Rachel Fredman, who is the head of marketing and communications at HitLab. So today is going to be the marketing episode. So if you have any questions for Rachel during our conversation, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and I will make sure to get those questions answered. And so with that, we'd like to bring on our guest, Rachel. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Nina. So nice to be here. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, wherever you're tuning in from. I am Rachel Fredman. I oversee all of the marketing and communications at HitLab, for HitLab, as well as for the organizations that we work with, partner with, sponsor. And so I, from a marketing standpoint, have I like to say I have the best of both worlds, because I kind of am in a little bit of everybody's business, because through the marketing, I need to know what's going on. So, I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I wanted to share a little bit more insight on kind of some of the challenges and opportunities that are available, particularly for femtech companies out there.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely going to be a really core component, especially as I think there's so many really amazing technologies that are being developed, but now the question is, or the next, phase is how to let people know about all of these amazing tools that are for them. And so before we kind of jump into that, would love if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, kind of how you landed in this role at HitLab.
Yes, sure. So I've always been in, since I was in college, I've had the joy of learning about public relations, marketing. And so I worked for an agency when I first graduated, and worked for many different companies, healthcare companies, pharma companies. And I particularly had a yearning for the healthcare. And so I kind of made my way over to the healthcare sector, worked there for a bunch, and then said, you know what, I love healthcare. I love the service side of it, but let me get a little bit more involved on the consumer side. And I actually worked for a consumer goods company doing their marketing and public relations. And after that, said to myself, okay, now I have both experiences under my belt. I really want to go into healthcare. And that's kind of where I found HitLab. And I just think that it's so amazing that there are all these organizations that are popping up and being created for, particularly for women's needs. Because, there are so many needs that many are not even aware of, which I think is, I'll get to that later. One of the issues as far as marketing it, there are so many issues related to just females that, all of these organizations or so many women are coming up with solutions for them, and figuring out ways to solve them using technology. And so I'm excited to kind of bring that, help these organizations as well as HitLab bring that to the forefront, and make it better known, create less stigma around women's health, and create more opportunities for these organizations.
I absolutely love that. And I think on that note, would love if you could just share with us a little bit more about, I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about, really the art when it comes to being able to market, especially within this space. Would love if you could share with us, what are the different opportunities that you've seen out there in the industry to really effectively market femtech, to the women that need it?
So, I'll start. Thank you. That's a very good question. So, as you know, the femtech market is poised to be a $50 million industry. One of the challenges is that most of the majority of these companies, I think it's about 85%, make less than $10 million in revenue. And that's mostly product. And, marketing, most oftentimes people think marketing, advertising, but there's a way to do it on a budget. And I think that one of the key components of marketing, for these health tech organizations, particularly in femtech, is storytelling. And there's kind of been a new methodology of marketing that's been put out there, and that's kind of taken precedent over the last couple of years, called content marketing. With the advent of social media and blogs and just more stuff being online, I think there's a huge opportunity, even just online, for femtech organizations to tell their stories. I think one of the issues that I think these organizations find is that there's often a stigma or taboo around women's health issues, whether it be that the women's talk about women's bodies are often people think it's highly sexualized, or we come from a tradition where that's just not being said. And so I think that it's important to break through that taboo. And breaking through that taboo can be by kind of pinpointing what the pain points are in the industry. Okay, so for example, what the issue is, whether it be fertility or periods or contraception, and really pinpointing what the challenges are, helping people to understand them. So raise awareness about that through whether it be blogs, podcasts, events, forums like this, and then sharing what these organizations are doing specifically to solve that problem, and really coming at it an emotional standpoint, as opposed to just, getting information out there. Because I think that for a lot of these organizations, you can't just send the information out there and think it's going to stick. I think that even females who, we're the ones buying the product and we know our bodies, but we're still unaware of many of the issues that are specifically related to females. We might not even know that they exist.
Yes.
And so I think that, there's one of the opportunities is to really raise that awareness about the issues, and then figure out how to best connect with your customers to get them to buy into you as a brand, but you also, that you understand them. So you want to establish that connection first from an emotional standpoint, and then you can talk about what your product is doing to help this population of people.
Absolutely. Wow. That's so much amazing information, but no, keep going.
Yeah. And so just in terms of the way that, so you might ask, how do you go about storytelling? So
that was my question.
Given that we are, in this day and age where everything is online, you don't even have to really leave your computer to do it. There's, social media. And again, with social media, I think even on social media, there's taboos. I know that, there have been a couple of instances where health tech companies or femtech companies have gone on to talk about a product specifically about the female body, and their content got flagged because they used the word, and pardon me for saying it out, but I figured they said vagina or period or, something like that on a public forum, and it's flagged for indecency. And so it's figuring out a way to really tell your story, figuring out how to do that in a clever way. And I think that in a creative way. And so I am seeing really great creative campaigns on social media, and ones that are kind of, breaking through the taboo without necessarily being taboo or going against Instagram or Facebook's guidelines. And so I think that we'll continue to see more of that. And I think that that's definitely a must for these organizations. I also think that kind of getting out there and, participating in networking sessions, participating in events with others, whether it be other femtech companies, to learn what they're doing, I think is always helpful. Even if you're, because while you might be competing, you also, we don't work in vacuums. And so there's always something you can pick up from someone else. I think that, opportunities like this to have just femtech creators get on and talk about some of the issues that are related to females and how, what we're doing to solve them. And then other things are blogs and website and whatnot. So those are just some of the things, and they don't take much of a budget. It's really, time and content and figuring out how to really best portray your space.
Absolutely. I love that you really started by talking about, I think, content and storytelling, because I definitely think definitely in the case of femtech, but I would say just more generally as a consumer, I think, there's so much more of an appetite to get to know kind of the people behind the company, to really ground it in someone's mission and their vision, and to kind of almost have a relationship with a company that way, or with the brand, or with a founder that way. So I love that you're talking about that, because I definitely think that from what I'm seeing and myself as a consumer, that's definitely the messages that really resonate with me are the ones that kind of come from a place of authenticity. Which I think
that storytelling gets that across. It also is an opportunity for, a lot of people consumers are skeptical about these brands because they haven't seen them out there. And like, I'm going to try this. I've never done it before. Really, this can help me. And so storytelling is an opportunity for, the femtech, the person, the founder to really share with the consumer the research process and what went into kind of founding that product, what went into it. And so they can really establish authority as well as what you said, credibility.
Absolutely. You bring up actually a very interesting point. Would love to kind of get additional thoughts on how, especially since you kind of mentioned that there is a little bit of an awareness gap. I think in general, women's health issues are just not talked about enough. So there can be a bit of that information gap when it comes to all the different new things that are coming up. What are some of the things that a brand can do to kind of help instill trust in their company, in their product? I know you had mentioned, storytelling and maybe the founder story is a way to do that, but are there any other avenues, testimonials or things like that someone can do to help instill trust?
Yes. So I think it's definitely testimonials, getting testimonials up on your website, having examples, like case studies. So, sharing on your website and again, as a way of storytelling. So sharing a blog post or on social media, someone that's used your product and has thrived as a result of it. So real world examples. And then I think it's also just, really educating people on what the issues are. Because as you said, I think forget the fact that there's not an awareness around these companies and the products, but I think there's just a lack of awareness about what some of the issues specifically related to females are. Right. And I think that, there's a huge opportunity in that. And, you could dedicate a whole section on, a whole month on your website, or, have an event or a webinar, or something of the sort where part one can be all about what are the issues that you face. Part two can be, okay, so how do we as a community address these issues, and what others are doing? Here's real world examples of how it's being used. And I think, once you get to the part three, your customer is more kind of aligned with you as a brand, and also you just gain more credibility.
Absolutely. You said something else that is also making me want to learn so much more, but you said the word community, which I think really resonated with me, because I think that can also be such a great way to, I think, number one, like you were saying, instill trust, but also just to, these are your people. These are going to be the ones that are having that problem. What are some ways that you can kind of lean on or incorporate community? I know that you had mentioned an event or a webinar. Are there any additional kind of avenues to utilize community events or platforms to just promote the product, but also learn more about, what the issues and pain points are?
So definitely, for one, social media is, I would say, the number one way that you're going to build community, because that's kind of, you're going to tell your story through social media, but you also don't want to be too salesy.
Right.
And earlier I said, that there's also some things that, you can't necessarily put out in a post as a sales thing, but if you're connecting with your individual customers and your community and the followers who are, following you because they know you have something important to say, I think it's continuously feeding them information. But that's not salesy. So it's feeding them information, but also engaging. So engaging through saying, oh, by the way, we're going to have this webinar. Maybe it's even, creating a campaign of some sort that has your community, your followers on social media involved. You say, whether it's a, Think Pink or, something, you have them sharing posts, and by them sharing posts, they're becoming ambassadors for you. And so I think it's really, the community building is huge, and it's very important. And I think that, the main way in which you do that, and then you kind of coddle it through the other vehicles, is through social media.
Right. Social media is such an amazing vehicle for really just like connecting with people and just sharing your message. So the answer is always social media.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. You had mentioned a little bit earlier about, some of the challenges, maybe some of the barriers. I know you had mentioned like censorship as kind of being one of them. Are there any other, hurdles or barriers or challenges that, maybe the founders who are listening in today should be aware of when it comes to, getting the word out about who they are and what they do?
I think another thing that I mentioned earlier is just a lack of awareness around what the issues are. And so I think that, if people don't know what the issues are, they might not pay attention to what your solution is, because it might not affect them. But I think it's bringing awareness to the issues, but in a way that, they kind of have universal applicability to females.
Right.
So someone might say, do I fit into that category? And then, figuring out how to, like, once you do that, figuring out the best way to message that. And as far as other challenges, I think it's, you just want to also avoid being too salesy. I think that, as I said before, creating that, emotional connection, and really, yes, you want to sell your product and you want to talk about your product, but at the same time, you'll really lose, faith in your audience if you just, spew out sales pitches all day and every day. So I would say that just, think creatively how to, yes, get a plug-in for your product, but make sure that you're constantly connecting on an emotional level.
I love that. And I think I love that you're really just kind of framing the context, right? And like around where all of this is going to be happening. Wanted to, because of course, social media. And I think you were saying something, you had mentioned as you were talking about some of the challenges really about like the avenues of messaging. And I think now there's so many social media or just channels out there, right? You've got your Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Pinterest, TikTok, Twitter, so many, and I'm sure there's going to be so many more. How do you go about determining, what channels are the best fit for you? Or is the answer more try to find a way to fit into all of the channels? Kind of what's your take on that?
So again, I mean, it would be great if we could market to all of the channels. Right. However, we all know that these companies are small. They have small budgets. So they, usually don't have the budget to hire someone full-time to do social media. And so I would say pick 3 channels that I would say kind of do some research, see where, if you're trying to target VCs, then, you're going to really want to be on LinkedIn. If you're trying to target consumers, I would say, pick 3 consumer avenues, and the best, I would say at the moment it's Instagram, TikTok and Facebook are kind of the three where the majority of your consumers will probably be living. But, you know, kind of take a look. I would say do a little bit of research and see kind of where, you know, if groups exist on those, you know, Facebook has groups. Are there groups for this book? You know, search content, see how much content is out there on that topic. And, you know, from that, you'll get an idea of whether or not your consumer lives in that space. I think it's also a matter of testing. I think, you know, pick 3, test it out, see where you kind of get the bang for your buck. I think that the content, you know, obviously you have to change it a little bit, you know, for TikTok, it's mostly videos. Now, Instagram, you can use the same videos that you use on TikTok. You can post them as reels. So I would say, you know, see if that sticks and if you can grow your community there. And because I would say those are probably the best for really talking to female consumers at the moment. And again, it depends on the age. Depends on the age of if you're, you know, targeting, you know, older women, then I would say Facebook is probably more in line. I think that there's also, you know, aside for social media, there's podcasts. I think, you know, the majority of people, I think a ton of people, particularly those who are commuting to and from or are listening to podcasts these days. And there's one on every subject you can listen to. And so I would say kind of look at some of the podcasts that, and I know that in the world of femtech, there are so many amazing podcasts that are available out there that interview femtech founders today, just to help them get the word out there. And so I think looking to see where those are, connecting with the, you know, the podcaster and figuring out how you can get yourself onto that podcast. And HitLab actually we have our own podcast where we're trying to get the story out. So, you know, I think podcasts, and then I think, you know, utilizing your own website. So I think as much as possible, utilizing, you know, attracting people to your website, using your social media so that people come to your website and use that as a place to engage, whether it be in a webinar or a survey or, you know, just, you know, something else that you're posting on your website to keep it new, to keep your consumers informed on the newest and latest and greatest.
I love it. Yeah, kind of find ways to keep it interactive and to kind of pull them in and engage them.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I know we're at 3 minutes till time. So I really wanted to ask, I think one of my favorite questions that we love to ask our guests is, I mean, you already gave so much great information, resources, just amazing places to start. But if you could give us a word of advice or something that maybe a mentor had given you or that you want to share with the community, do you have any just general words of advice when it comes to career or life?
So I would say personal connections. I would say connections and really coddling your relationships with whether it be consumers, whether it be your colleagues. I think that, you know, relationships are kind of what makes it work. And I would say that just maintaining those relationships and figuring out how to stay in touch and you know, utilizing those relationships to, you know, to leverage, to help others, but also to help yourself.
Absolutely. I love it. I feel like, you know, there's so many ways to connect. And I think it all kind of comes down to, like you were saying, fostering, coddling that relationship. So I love that. And thank you so much, Rachel, for taking the time to chat with us today. Learned so much about all the avenues of marketing. So really, really appreciate you sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Well, thank you so much. It was great being here, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, Rachel. Before we hop off, just wanted to let everyone know, give some quick announcements. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have our Innovator Summit. All of the registration info is in the chat, as well as our Breakthrough One Alliance membership. So please be sure to check those out. Really great communities to be a part of within the femtech space. Wanted to thank our sponsors, Goodwin and Witham, for sponsoring this conversation, as well as give a last shout out to Rachel for all of her tips and tricks when it comes to marketing femtech. And with that, I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.